Wow, you quieted down quicker than you usually do. Good manners for our guest.
We have guests in the house.
Yes, right. Usually have to bang it like 4 or 5 times. This is not in my written thing, but I want to say, of this weekend, Friday, we had to struggle with wind at the Multi-Faith Blessing. Yesterday at the symposium, there was no power, no microphones, and today we have a monsoon. So I'm taking it as a sign that we are stirring up good trouble. Good morning. My name is Michael Sheridan, and I'm so pleased to be with Rev Lisa on the chancel this morning. We're so grateful to have her with us on this very special Sunday when we are commemorating the 125th anniversary of the 1898 massacre and coup d'etat. Reverend Lisa is the executive director of UU Justice NC, the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry in North Carolina. In just 3 short years, she has built a coalition of over 24 UU congregations and a network of partners from other liberation faiths and organizations to address a bunch of intersectional justice issues, a range of them. She has been a bulwark for both inspiration and strength for our own social justice ministry here at UUCW. Yeah, you are. So we're so thankful to have you here today. And we welcome all of you to worship today, whether you're in the sanctuary or joining us online. We hope in this congregation and sacred space, wherever it may be, you will be strengthened by spiritual encouragement and find comfort from those who join you in worship. As we enter worship, we're going to practice the sacred spiritual practice of turning off our cell phones or muting them. So can we take a moment and make sure that's happened? So to everyone familiar and everyone new to this congregation, you are welcomed with love. If you're in person, you're invited to stop by the welcome table out in the vestibule if you'd like to learn more about this congregation and Unitarian Universalism. If you're joining online, hi folks, please visit the newcomer page on our website at www.uucwnc.org to get acquainted with us. At this time, we invite visitors or folks who have been away from us for a while to introduce or reintroduce yourselves, if you would feel comfortable doing so. If you're online, please drop a line in the chat box. I know that we might have a few visitors here today. So I'm going to start over here on my left. Would you rise and let us know who you are and where you're from?
That's right.
We'll start in the back.
I'm Melvin Fager-Oken from the UU Community Church in Chapel Hill. So glad to be here.
Great.
Dorothy Hammett from Chapel Hill.
Wonderful. In here?
Sharon Mayhell, David Waterman from Chapel Hill.
Okay. Yay, Chapel Hill.
From Wilmington.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Glad to have you with us.
I'm Sharon, a member of the congregation, and my guests this evening were Jane and Jessica. And as would be surprised, I found out that Jane plays the recorder.
Ah.
So we got a chance to play together this evening.
Oh, that's great. That's great.
And they're from our Raleigh congregation.
And they're from Raleigh, yeah, the Raleigh congregation. How about here in the middle? We have any visitors? Okay, again, let's start in the back.
Tom Phillips from Wilmington.
Okay, wonderful.
Claire from Durham.
Welcome. You, sir? Huh?
Dennis McCracken. I live in Aberdeen and work with the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Sandhills.
Wonderful.
Brenda Murphy and Unitarian Universalist Congregation of the Sandhills. And we're in town this weekend
Right, it's wonderful. And you? Okay. Okay. I know.
Derek Jackson, also in Washington, D.C.
Yeah. Well, welcome everyone in the middle. And now over here to the right, do we have any visitors? Woo. So again, the gentleman in the back.
Dick Kissler and Vivian Brenner, we're here from the Charlotte community.
Okay, great, thank you.
Richard Atlanta Harkrader from Unitarian Fellowship in Durham, North Carolina.
Wonderful.
And Pat Wilkie is our host.
Yes,
I'm enjoying you both very much.
that's good. And next to you.
Carolina Wet, Peter DeLauro from the Eno River Church in Durham.
Wonderful.
Stephen Lowry and my wife Susan from here.
Oh, great, all right.
I'm Peter, and I'm honored to welcome back my friend, my colleague from Love Our Children NC, and my mentor, Veronica McLaurin-Brown.
Yeah. Well,
Thank my mentor. Introducing me, and I just want to say from the depths of my heart that I appreciate and I value, and I'm so encouraged by the principles of UUC, and I know the world will continue to get better with all of your efforts for social justice. And thank you for your support.
thank you. So thank all of you for coming, whether near or far, to share our service today. Please join us for coffee, and there's a rumor that there's more than coffee this morning. We have a great meal planned for you. Afterwards in Dobkin Hall, which is straight back at the back of the building. So announcements, UUs have to have announcements. So in your order of service, please find announcements for some of the many activities happening in our congregation. If you're joining us online, a link for the order of service is available on the homepage of our website. There's also a calendar of events posted on the wall on your way to Dobkin Hall. I'd like to highlight a couple of announcements. One is from the member engagement team, which is conducting a survey of engagement, involvement, and new ideas. That's a great name for a survey. Look for the email they sent out on Friday that has a link to this survey. This easy to complete survey lists many of the ways to be engaged and involved at UUCW. This survey should preferably be completed online, but print copies are also available in the church foyer on the welcome table. Submission deadline is November 26th. Second, I invite you to take a look at the fine art photography of our own Dan Wheat Rivers on our gallery wall. He has really captured the beauty of nature here in the Cape Fear region. I'm trying to make out my mind which one I want.
Also West Coast.
Oh, also West Coast?
When we were in California too.
Okay, we'll have to point out which one's from here. So Dan's art is for sale, and 30% of all proceeds will benefit UUCW. Please talk with him, raise your hand, or call the office for sale inquiries. So given that this Justice Pilgrimage Weekend calls us to both acknowledge the truth of our painful history here in Wilmington and work towards healing the wounds of its ongoing legacy, we're going to do something a little different for our call to worship this morning. We thought it would be fitting to begin with responsive reading 637, a litany of atonement, which you can find in the back of the gray hymnal. I will read the lines, and you will respond with the italicized words. Has everybody found it? For remaining silent when a single voice would have made a difference.
We forgive ourselves and each other. We begin again in love.
For each time that our fears have made us rigid and inaccessible.
We forgive ourselves
For each time that we have struck out in anger without just cause. For each time that our greed has blinded us to the needs of others. For the selfishness which sets us apart and alone. For falling short of the admonitions of the Spirit. For losing sight of our unity. For those and for so many acts, both evident and subtle, which have fueled the illusion of separateness. And now let's take a moment to settle ourselves, to take a nice, deep, long breath, and another, and to open our hearts and minds to what worship will bring this morning. At the sounding of the chimes, let our spirits enter into a different space, a space of worship, of life, of that which we hold sacred. May we take this time to grow our souls.
Preston. Good morning. And now, in solidarity with Unitarian Universalist congregations across the nation and around the world, we light our chalice, saying the words by Erica Hewitt that are written in your order of service, and I'll invite Pat Wilkie to come up and light our chalice. Please refer to the words written in your order of service. The chalice, as a symbol of Unitarian Universalism, arose as a beacon of hope in an atmosphere of tyranny. The chalice arose as a sign of promise that the marginalized would neither be forgotten nor ignored, because they are beloved and precious from the perspective of the holy. This morning we remember all the people who have been told explicitly or implicitly through police violence or government policy, through derision or dehumanization, that they're anything less than whole, anything less than beloved. As we light a chalice in this sanctuary and in our homes, may we make our life a beacon, a symbol of our promise to draw the circle wide, a sign that we will not rest until all means all. Now let us rise in body or spirit to sing hymn number 134 in your gray hymnal.
Good morning again, everyone. For our guests who are here, I'm Reverend Kelly. I'm one of the ministers of this congregation and very thoroughly, deeply grateful that you are gathered here. Our story for all ages is Good Night Racism by Ibram X. Kendi. I was hoping there would be more children than my tiny person here, so I'm going to talk to you all as children of all ages. I wanted to start by explaining at its very heart, racism is when people with lighter skin treat people with darker skin like they aren't as good as them and don't let them have what they need. It is a way of not being fair. And as my daughter will tell you from Girl Scouts, being honest and fair is a part of being human. I will not be able to show you all the pictures so well from here, so I'm going to leave it out on the front table after the service because the artwork is truly beautiful. Outside the window, peeking down from the night sky, the moon watches over us. She sees kids smiling at dinner tables and yawning in their beds. But some kids do not have food, do not have beds, because of unfair rules and unjust treatment. The moon sees all kids, whoever they are, wherever they are, and shines her light on them. The moon wants her light to kiss every child goodnight, The moon delights when every child falls asleep. Because the moon knows that when we sleep, we dream. When we dream, we imagine what is possible, what the world can be, and the moon glows a little brighter, whispering, "Dream, my child, imagine, my child, a new world, a new future awaits." A world where all people are safe, no matter how they look, how they worship, or how they love. A world where all kids have the same chance to have peace, to have joy, to have a childhood. A world where all people breathe fresh air and have what they need to feed their minds and bodies. Good night, unfair rules. Good night, cruelty. Good night, injustice. Good night, inequality. Good night, hate. Good night, hurt. Good night, racism. Good night.
Amen to that.
Will you all join now as we sing our child to her classroom?
Now I'd like to invite my dear friend Derek Jackson to come up and offer us our reading for this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Retracing My Steps by Glenn Thomas Rideout. When it was his turn to present his history project to our 7th grade class, he began with delight, flashing a large poster board and permanent marker family tree. He'd been able to trace his ancestors back to the 1500s. I wondered how he managed to discover so many and so much. I tried something like that a year before. I'd asked every adult in my family, stayed in the local library for so long that they gave me a job at the desk. I combed the internet looking for something of my deeper heritage so that I could imagine myself. He was talking about his German ancestors. I remember feeling confusion. I had no idea where he was getting this information about his great-great-great-grandparents. I looked around me, and none of the other black kids in the classroom seemed to have a clue either. We don't have those stories. Ultimately, I realized that my white classmate had access to time that I didn't have, access to stories and connections that I could never have. Like most black people, I rise on the shoulders of ancestors whose names I cannot know. Our ability to move through our own past is encumbered, cut off at that point where we, as human beings, were sold like cargo, the point of erasure. In order to shackle people to ships, you have to untether them from their life stories, their heritage, their bloodlines, their land, and their homes. You do all of this untethering, and for the rest of the generations of that person, for the rest of time, there will be no knowing of their stories. If, from the beginning of racism and this human trafficking, the point was to build a country with people imprisoned and kept in their economic states, then the only way for America, for all of her people, to get any sort of free together is to act as if these stolen stories truly exist, to replace habits that encumber the movement and liberation of our kindred, to remember even the lives for which we know no names. We show our children now the truths of yesterday and the possibility of tomorrow. It's this deeper connection with the greater living story that brings a chance of wellness and repair for all life. Thank you.
There are days we wish would never end because they are so wonderful. And there are days that cannot end too soon, for they are so hard. Sorrow is often the mortar between our happiness. We take this time to recognize those good days and the hard ones. You are now invited to come to the front and light a candle or place a shell or river stone in the fountain. If you're online, please feel free to enter your personal joys and concerns in the chat box. As our friends come forward, let us sing our compassion to them with hymn 123, Spirit of Life.
And now I will light one final candle for all the joys and sorrows that are still too tender to be shared. Now please join me in a moment of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life and love, spirit of wonder and stillness and rainy autumn days. Help us to hear the sacred truth which calls us this morning. The energy that moves through this room right now, the gravity that holds us all to the same earth, the moon which shines down on each of us. It whispers, we are all connected. Even in our pain, in our sorrow, even when human connection seems far away, we are not alone. But how could that be? When so often this world makes us feel the cold sting of isolation, the Spirit of life laughs, because it knows that this interconnected web, you couldn't break from it if you tried. This living, breathing Spirit, we are a part of it. And it, a part of us. This chorus of ancestors and living beings alike accompany us. They worry and hurt, and yes, heal with us. May we feel their sacred embrace deep in our bones. Amen. Well, good morning again. This room is filling my heart with so much joy right now. It's moments like this where we grasp the highest aspirations of our faith and the interconnectedness of over 5,000 Unitarian Universalists across our state. Can I get an amen? Amen. It is a deep privilege to be here with you all this weekend, joined by pilgrims across our state observing the 125th anniversary of the coup and massacre here in Wilmington. And as Michael mentioned, my name is Rev Lisa Garcia Sampspm, and I proudly serve as the Executive Director of the Unitarian Universalist Justice Ministry of North Carolina. We currently work with over 24 congregations across our state, not the Sandhills yet, though. Brenda, let's talk. With the mission of joyfully organizing UUs to co-create a transformative movement for justice through spiritual grounding, collaboration, and imagination. We support congregations in their justice work. We work in very close relationship with our national UU partners, and we are uniquely positioned to work at a state level and organize UUs to contribute to statewide campaigns and movements for justice. Not too long ago, my job afforded me the opportunity to be in conversation with someone I never imagined I'd be on a first-name basis with. One of the most prophetic voices in our faith today, the incredible Paula Cole Jones. And whenever I talk to her, I try to play it cool, but if I'm honest, I'm always a little starstruck. So we're on the phone, it's pretty late at night, it's like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night. And we're talking about the brutal legislative session that we have had this year in Raleigh, when suddenly she stopped and said, "Lisa, are you outside?" And I was outside. I was walking my dog Cooper, and I immediately apologized, thinking she couldn't hear me over the cars. How rude. This is Paula Cole Jones. But then she said, no, Lisa, that's not what I meant. And then she said, "Lisa, look up at the moon." And I did. It was such a simple thing. I just looked up, and something happened. After a really hard week, when I was so wrapped up in my own situation, that act pulled me out of my head and into a larger consciousness. We spent a few minutes just raptured by that crescent moon, how beautiful it feels to be two people separated by hundreds of miles, but looking up at that same moon. We imagined how many people on our planet at that very moment were looking up at the moon, discerning their own work for justice in this moment in history. It made me feel so small, and I don't need help feeling small. And yet it made me feel so deeply connected to this abundant, loving movement, larger than our state, larger than our faith, larger than we can even imagine. And it reminded me of something that had just occurred the day before. That weekend, I had been right here in Wilmington as the movement chaplain for a community safety training. This 2-day training is no joke. It's for people working to keep our movement safe at abortion clinics, at drag story hours, voting sites, churches, school board meetings, and all the places where extremist groups are creating real safety threats in our state. At lunch, you let me know, I'll show you the pictures of Michael Sheridan practicing doing eye washes for Peter Rowich in case of a scenario in which Peter gets pepper sprayed, which, let's be honest, Peter, it's a distinct possibility. Your own congregational leaders were there alongside UUs from Morehead City, and our movement partners across the East Coast to learn about situational awareness, de-escalation, and other important skills. And this came at a time when the Unitarian Coastal Fellowship of Morehead City was discerning whether to hang a progress flag. And more broadly, they were discerning the risks of becoming more visible as a beacon of progressive values in a very small and conservative town. During one of the breaks, I checked in with their minister, Reverend Micah, to see how they were doing, and they said that their congregational leaders had come to equip themselves with the skills to keep their community safe in case they were ever targeted for doing something visibly progressive. But Reverend Micah said it was a powerful thing that they were discerning a call to courage and recognizing that the danger that they were choosing to lean into is for many not a choice, but an inescapable reality. But Micah said that by far the most important thing that they had learned that weekend was not skills or awareness of their privilege, but the realization that they were not alone. These congregational leaders looked around the room, not only at fellow UUs, but at this larger beloved community in our state, and viscerally understood that they belonged to a larger movement for justice, working shoulder to shoulder in shared values and shared vision, even when hundreds of miles apart. Perhaps there's a sense in which that was their looking up at the moon moment. And maybe, just maybe, that experience influenced their congregation's decision to ultimately hang that progress flag following the passage of North Carolina's Don't Say Gay bill, the ban on gender-affirming care for minors, and the ban on trans youth playing sports. That flag will be a beacon of love and resistance in their town. That is no small thing. We are undoubtedly living through a moment where we are all being called to courage, both within and outside the walls of our congregations, to show up in alignment with our values and solidarity with those who are most vulnerable in our communities. So don't forget to look up at the moon and know that the abundant love and power of this movement is here to sustain you and to guide you. On Tuesday of that same week, I was at my monthly art club for local justice organizers in Durham to explore our work through creative expression. My watercolors are pretty bad, but I'm told that's not the point. It's led by the Jewish Studio Project and always begins with a Jewish text study, and that is the second time that week that the moon came to me with a lesson. The text study was about the particular week in the Jewish calendar that week that specifically recognized the holy day of Shavuot, which marks the occasion when the Israelites were journeying in the wilderness in the darkest of nights, when Moses went up to the mountain to receive the 10 Commandments. This is a story I know pretty well, maybe you do too, but what struck me was the reference to the moon. It was the third new moon since they had escaped from Egypt, and the new moon is the darkest point in the moon cycle because it's the moment when the moon is in conjunction with the sun, and its dark side is towards the earth. For all you Pink Floyd fans out there, it is literally the dark side of the moon. I was struck by this story because it reminds us that we are called to have faith. That in the darkest, scariest moments in the wilderness, we can give birth to something new. And the new moon reminds us that our world is ever turning, ever unfolding, and that change is revelation. That change is itself sacred. That is the wisdom that earth-centered and astrological and Eastern religions teach us, and it is a core truth to our own living tradition of Unitarian Universalism. Beloveds, by so many measures, We are in the dark night in the wilderness. The pandemic, January 6th, the rise of extremist groups, the fall of Roe v. Wade, the monster abortion ban in North Carolina, the monster voter suppression bill in North Carolina, gerrymandered maps, banned books, attacks on public schools, trans youth, drag story hours, and the list goes on and on and on. We are in that dark night. And revelation is emerging. I think one of those revelations is that there is, in fact, a majority of people in this fractured state of North Carolina who fundamentally want the same things. But it is a minority of powerful people in our state with hateful and greedy agendas who are exquisitely skilled at dividing us, at convincing us that we can't all have health care, we can't all have good-paying jobs and well-funded schools. They feed us that false narrative of a zero-sum game, and fear does the rest. But friends, we know our history. We are here this weekend because we know our history. And we know that collective thriving is possible because it happened right here in Wilmington, North Carolina. Before the atrocities of 1898, fusion politics and the growth of commerce in the port city created a reality where both Black and white residents of this city were thriving economically, socially, culturally. There was a multiracial board of aldermen. There was a multiracial representation in our state's General Assembly. Democracy was being realized right here. But then the propaganda, but then the fear, but then the very, very skillful organizing violently halted the boundless trajectory of this city, and instead became the catalyst of the white supremacy movement and the rise of Jim Crow segregation, not only here in North Carolina, but across the South. I think the important point to remember here is that the majority of people in 1897 embraced fusion politics and were experiencing collective thriving, but a mob of the minority employed fear and violence when democracy was not on their side. Does this sound familiar? Is it not the same today? In this state that is growing in racial and age diversity, growing in progressive values, that a minority view is employing propaganda and violent extremist groups and gerrymandered maps in an effort to retain money and power. Is it not the same, my friends? We are in the dark night in the wilderness. But if we listen, in the wind and from the sacred ground, the ancestors of Wilmington whisper, there are more of us than them. In August, the ancestors were with us at the New Hanover County School Board meeting when the people of Wilmington showed up in massive numbers for the meeting where the school board discussed banning the book Stamped by Ibram X. Kendi. And if we heard our story for all ages this morning, you of course know how dangerous this man's ideas are. I'm sure many of you know, but for some out-of-towners, here today, these new Hanover County School Board meetings have become a place where the Proud Boys show up in large numbers to intimidate anyone advocating for progressive values. And that has included, on at least one occasion, loudly taunting trans youth as they testified to their school board about their experiences in school. As a member of our state safety team, I drove in to join their local safety crew that was marshaling the event, and I was on the crew facing the woods, because that's where the Proud Boys like to emerge out of, wearing their brass knuckles and their bandanas over their faces for added intimidating effect. But guess what? On that day, the Proud Boys never emerged from the woods. Local leaders strongly believe that the massive turnout of over 300 people, including 50 members of this congregation, kept the Proud Boys in the woods that day. There are more of us than them. Amen? Amen. That's right. And this congregation is an example to UUs across our state of the power of our faith. And friends, we are just getting started. In our communities across the state, we are finding our courage and our power from this revelation. This year, our movement celebrated the biggest win in a decade, the massive expansion of Medicaid in North Carolina, and I am thrilled to say that on December 1st, in 18 days, but who's counting? Who the hell? I am counting. In 18 days, Medicaid will finally be enacted, giving over 600,000 people in our state new access to health care. Can I get an amen? We helped do that. It took us 12 years. And people kept saying that it was never going to happen because propaganda and political narrative said, no, the people of North Carolina don't want health care. Not if a black president is the one trying to give it to us. Let's tell the truth about that. Can you believe we fell for that for 12 years? That is how strong the false narratives are moving through our state right now. But together, our Medicaid expansion movement from the mountains to the ocean, spanning generations and racial identities, and yes, eventually even political identities, kept fighting and believing that this day was possible, and now, my friends, this day is here. We are in a new moon moment, and we are called to do the hard work, the courageous work, the uncomfortable work. Not just showing up against book banning, that's easy. For our crew, that's easy. Not just learning the history of 1898, that is easy. But by honoring 1897 and creating a North Carolina of collective flourishing and fusion politics that we know is possible because the ancestors of this great city showed us how. Let's do that hard work. Finally, like the new moon, the full moon also offers us deep wisdom. It is the moment when the sun will illuminate the entire moon, making her the brightest object in the night sky. That big bright sphere reminds us that we are not meant to just survive in the wilderness. Beloveds, we are meant to dance under the light of the moon. We are meant to know abundance and thriving. One final story. When I first came to North Carolina and took over our state justice ministry, I felt very insecure about my role in the movement, particularly because joy has always been the deepest instinct of my spirit. It's a core part of my identity and my ministry. That's why I'm always throwing confetti and DJing Zoom meetings. But I worried that leading with joy was inappropriate in a time of such fear and pain and loss, and I worried that it would be experienced as a disregard or a privileged avoidance of these realities. And let's be honest about the fact that Unitarian Universalists have made this mistake time and time and time again. But this is what the movement in North Carolina has taught me. Something that my 34 years in New England never did. As the poet Toy Derricott says, joy is an act of resistance. Joy is not counter to the movement, it is the purpose of the movement. Love and joy and rest and abundance, these are the things we are fighting for, and so these are the things we should be fighting with. That is the difference between a movement centered in the act of fighting against and a movement grounded in the act of creation. A movement that is loving and life-giving and, dare I say it, irresistible. So Peter, keep writing your justice songs. Kat, keep bringing your drum. Where's Kat today? Keep making meals and inviting new friends to break bread. Keep building trust and affection with your community partners, one act of solidarity at a time, because this is love. And love is the life source that sustains us. It is the beacon in the night sky that guides us. So nourish your spirit as if your life depended on it, as if all of our lives depend on it. Open yourself to receive every blessing. Know that it is your birthright. And that as people of faith, we must lean into the movement to help co-create a world where that birthright can be claimed by all. Friends, may we remember that we are held in the beloved community more loving and more powerful than we can even imagine. May we have faith that the darkest moments can give birth to something sacred and new. And if we ever feel alone, may we simply remember to look up at the moon. Amen.
I don't know, Bishop Barber and Reverend Lisa in the same weekend. I am full. So today's Share the Plate goes to Love Our Children NC, an organization that was started by our own congregant, Peter Rowich, along with Veronica McLaren Brown, who I am so delighted is here today. Too often, young children are suspended or put in seclusion for showing disrespect or other behaviors that are developmentally appropriate, when what they really need is positive guidance or other supportive services. Love Our Children's North Carolina's mission is to keep kids in school. What a radical concept. And end exclusionary discipline of 5-, 6-, and 7-year-olds for minor infractions. Love Our Children NC is working throughout North Carolina to educate the public about suspensions, seclusion rooms, and parental rights. Please donate generously to this important cause and consider joining other UUs in attending school board meetings to speak up for children who can't speak up for themselves. We had a good number last month, let's make it even bigger next month. If you are contributing by check, please put STP in the memo field. You can also text your donation to 813-513-0597. Would the ushers please come forward to take the collection?
Now let us rise in body or spirit for our hymn number 170 in your gray hymnal, We Are a Gentle, Angry People.
I want to thank everyone who made this service possible this morning, starting with Reverend Lisa. Who gave us such an inspiring sermon this morning. I know I will reflect on it a lot and look at the moon. And I want to thank the whole social ministry team. Could you, like raise your hand or shout out or something?
Including Michael Sheridan.
And I want to thank Preston for providing the beautiful music. And Derek for being a wonderful guest reader. Reverend Kelly for sharing that very dangerous book, Goodnight Racism. Pam and Peter as our greeters this morning. Cammie and Gail at the welcome table. Twink and Beth as our ushers. Pat Wilkie as our room verger. Jimmy Reeves back there in the closet as room verger. The folks in the parking lot. That was very helpful. Yay! Pat Forrest and Kathy Gilchrist and Kim Singleton and Dennis McCulley, for whom, if they were not here, I don't think we would eat, who are leading up hospitality, and everyone. I want to thank everyone who brought a dish to share. And speaking of our shared meal, I would like to ask my fellow congregants to please allow our guests to be first in line. Can we do that? And now for our closing words.
These words come from my dear friend, the Reverend Ashley Horan. We say it again and again, even when the proof lies somewhere beyond the horizon, beyond our reach, beyond our imagination. This is our faith. Another world is possible. Not somewhere else, another world, another lifetime, but here and now for us and for all. In this time of despair, of fear, of collapse, this time is both like every other era and like no other time in human history. It is audacious to declare our faith, but we are an audacious people. In good company, with many kin, and we are ready to show up and work hard and stay humble and make friends and hold the vision, starting here, now, today, with us, and persevering however long it takes, until that other world is not only possible, but another world is here. Amen. And now please join me as we extinguish our chalice with the words in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And now let us join hands as we do every week and end our service with shalom.